So a deadly explosion rips through the heart of India's capital, and the entire nation is just in shock. Now, the immediate response is all about security, right? Investigation. But what if the real target wasn't a place at all? What if it was the very fabric of our society? Today, we're going to break down an editorial that makes a really powerful argument that our best defense against terrorism isn't just force, it's unity.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll look at what actually happened in the immediate security fallout. Then, we're going to get to the heart of it all, unpacking this whole strategy of chaos. And finally, we'll explore this really interesting idea of social harmony as our best defense.
All right, first up, a capital in shock. And to really get why this was such a big deal, we got to look at exactly what went down and, just as importantly, where.
So picture this. It's the evening of November 10th in Delhi. A car just explodes near the historic Red Fort. I mean, this was a sudden, incredibly violent act in a place that, really symbolizes the heart of the nation. It was absolutely designed for maximum impact and maximum intention.
And here's the human cost. Just devastating. 13 people lost their lives, and so many more were injured. A number like that, it instantly flips this from just a news headline into a genuine national tragedy. It just raises the stakes for absolutely everyone.
So, as the investigation starts to unfold, a really troubling picture begins to form. The suspect? Identified as a doctor from Kashmir, who actually died in the blast. Now, that detail alone is pretty significant, because it immediately touches on all these existing societal fault lines. But, maybe even more importantly, the evidence started suggesting this wasn't some lone wolf attack. Nope, it looked like part of a much wider network, pointing to a far more organized and dangerous threat.
And that brings us right to our second section, the security response. I mean, when you're faced with a clear and organized threat like this, the state has to mobilize its full power, right? And that's exactly what happened. They brought out their most potent legal and investigative tools.
And you can just see the full weight of the state machinery come crashing down. 2 major laws were invoked, the country's top counter-terror agency, the NIA, takes charge, and of course the political sphere just lights up. You've got the government promising justice and the opposition demanding accountability.
And using the UAPA, which you see defined here, is a really big deal. It's basically a formal declaration. It tells everyone that the authorities are not treating this as just a crime. They see it as a calculated act of terrorism, something aimed at the entire nation. Okay, so let's step back for a second. Beyond the awful tragedy and the legal response, why was this specific attack so alarming for the country's security establishment? Well, it really comes down to one thing: location.
This really shows the strategic shift perfectly. On the one hand, you have recent history, where organized terror attacks were pretty much contained to known conflict zones. But this attack, it completely shattered that status quo. It brought a major terror event right into the heart of the national capital. And that's a place with just immense symbolic and political power.
In this quote, it just nails the incredible pressure that security agencies are under. I mean, think about it. They can stop countless plots and we never even hear about them. All those successes are silent. But just one single failure, one lapse, and you get a tragedy like this, which leads to this huge public and political firestorm.
Okay, and this brings us to the absolute core of the editorial's argument. Look, the physical damage of a bomb is horrific, there's no question. But the real goal of the terrorist, it's something way bigger, and honestly, way more insidious.
This lays it out perfectly. The terrorist's main weapon, it's not actually the bomb. It's the chaos that comes after. Their goal is to pit communities against each other, to make people lose faith in the government's ability to keep them safe. And if that's their strategy, well, then the best counter-strategy isn't just more force. It's more unity.
And this right here, this is basically the terrorists' playbook for creating that chaos. They want to set off polarizing political fights, they want to spread rumors and misinformation, and they want to sow distrust between different communities. Every single one of these things is a potential win for them. It's like a crack in the shield of society.
So if the enemy's whole game is to divide us, then our ultimate defense has to be to unite. And this brings us to a much bigger vision of national security, one that goes way beyond just, guns and gates.
Yeah, this really represents a fundamental shift in how we think about security. Of course, effective policing is crucial, right? It's a huge piece of the puzzle. But true national security, that's about resilience. It's about building a society that's so strong from the inside that it can take the psychological hit of an attack like this and not shatter.
So, what does this actually look like in practice? Well, the editorial lays out this really smart three-step approach. First, the immediate stuff. A fast, transparent investigation, and really importantly, political leaders need to show restraint. Then, for the medium term, you proactively build trust with things like community policing. And finally, there's the long game, focusing on things like de-radicalization programs and reforms that protect everyone's rights. That's how you strengthen the state's legitimacy.
And there it is, the big takeaway. This isn't just some, feel-good idea. It's a hard-nosed security strategy. Social harmony isn't some nice thing that happens after you have safety. It is a core part of safety. It's simple, really. A united society is just a much, much harder target for anyone trying to create division and chaos.
And that really leaves us with this one powerful final question to think about. In the long fight against terrorism, we pour so much into intelligence, laws, and military force. But maybe, just maybe, the most important investment we can possibly make is in the trust and unity we share with each other. Because when you're facing an enemy whose only goal is to tear us apart, our strongest shield might just be our ability to stand together.